Hello, this is Wes from Bad Seed Games, and today we're going to go over in Unity the Playmaker finite state machine actions get FSM and set FSM. Now, these actions are incredibly handy because, for example, if you want to pass information between objects in the scene and you don't want to have to use global variables, which you could do, but it's a little sloppy sometimes, depending on how many you need to pass. This is a quick and easy way of doing so. Now, I've already got the scene set up with the action and the variables with all the information that I'm going to pop in there. Oh wait, no, this is the empty one. Yep, okay. So, the variable storage finite state machine, and in here you can see three variables. The Boolean has a true, which is not its default. The float has a number, and hello world in the string. Now, in the fetching variables, we've got three variables that we're going to have grab the information from the storage and then populate them. Now, I've exposed each and every one of them to the inspector so that we can see them update as it goes. So, first thing we need to do in the action state machine, the first one is a Boolean, so let's take a look and see what goes on. So, first thing that happens with the get FSM bool, it's going to ask you for a game object. Now, by default it says to use the owner, but for this example we're not going to be doing that. But you would use this if, for example, you had multiple finite state machines stacked on each other, like in this one. This is an empty finite state machine, and this is where the variables are stored. So it's going back to that. If it's not on the owner, you can specify a specific game object, and it will bring down this field. Now, you can either drag and drop an object, or if you click this button, you can tell it to use a predefined game object variable, which you can create here. But since we're not going to be using a predefined variable, let's grab it from variable storage and go to the next field. Now, FSM name, if you click this little down button, it'll give you a list of all the finite state machines that it detects on that object. Now, this is an empty FSM, that's empty. But the variable storage is what we want. Next one, it's going to ask you what the variable name is. So you can click the Boolean value. Now, the store value, what we're going to store it in. There. Now, this is something that you might want to take a look at for the every frame. So, for example, say you have a vector3 variable and you want it to be always updated as with the information of, like, say, the position of where your player character is at all times. If you click the every frame, it'll do it every frame. But for our purposes, we're not going to need it. So that's set up. Now let's go and add the rest of them, which are a float and a string. So get FSM float and get FSM string. Let's set them up the same way as before. Variable, here we go. And the last one. Okay. Now that that's set up, what this is going to do, since this is the start state, it's going to fire off as soon as it starts. So if we look in the inspector, there is nothing in here. But as soon as we hit play, notice that the Boolean is switched to true. The float now shows a number of 123.45, and the string is saying hello world. That means that it's successfully gotten the information from the variable storage and has stored them in there. Now, the set FSM states, actions, are pretty much the exact same, but instead of getting the information, you can tell it to give the information. So, the variable storage, let's put the set FSM bool, set FSM float, and set FSM string. Let's get rid of these. I'm just going to turn them off for now. Oh yeah, that's one thing. If you click that checkbox, they will not fire. But actually, let's get rid of them just so that there are no doubts. Alright, so set FSM bool. Same thing, specify the game object, but instead of the one that we're going to grab the information from, we're going to tell it which one to put the information into. Same thing, variable fetch, and the name. Now, since this is a set, it's a little bit different though. Now, we can either manually set it, or by basically clicking on the checkbox, yes for check for true, uncheck for false, or if we click this button, we can expose the variable field, so we can tell it to set it to whatever the value of bool variable is. Let's get this set up for the rest of them. Again, set the value to what float variable is, and again for this one. Again, we need to set the variable since we're working with that. Alright, so now that that's done, let's go back to the inspector, go back to the fetching variables, and now that this is an empty state, it shouldn't be doing anything on this end. But when we hit play, the fields have been populated again. Okay, so I hope that answers a couple questions you may have had, and if you like this video, feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. Have a good one.